Think you know Drake? Think again. In this video, we'll strip away the headlines and walk through the real turning points. The basement recordings that launched him, the mixtape that flipped the game, the feuds that tested him, and the personal choices that built an empire. Stick with me till the end. The final reveal changes everything you thought you knew about fame, music, and legacy. If you want more deep dives like this, smash like, hit subscribe, and drop Aubrey in the comments. Now let's get into it. 1. Birth and family background. Aubrey Drake Graham was born on October 24, 1986, in Toronto, Canada, a city that would later become the heartbeat of his identity and the foundation of his music. His birth itself was symbolic of the blend that would define his art, a fusion of different worlds, cultures, and experiences. His father, Dennis Graham, was an African-American drummer from Memphis, Tennessee, who had played alongside the legendary Jerry Lee Lewis. His mother, Sandy Graham, was a white Jewish-Canadian educator from Toronto. This unique mix of musical heritage and cultural diversity meant that Drake grew up at the crossroads of rhythm and reflection, his father giving him the soul of the South, and his mother grounding him in the calm, intellectual warmth of Canada. From an early age, Drake was surrounded by music. His father's stories of the Memphis music scene filled his imagination with images of smoky jazz clubs, gospel harmonies, and the deep pulse of rhythm and blues. When Drake visited his father in Memphis during the summer, he would absorb the spirit of Southern sound, raw, emotional, and deeply human. Back home in Toronto, his mother played soft rock and pop classics, introducing him to the poetry of melody and introspective lyrics. This duality, the soulful beat of Memphis and the introspective calm of Toronto, would one day merge into the unique sound that made Drake one of the most influential artists of his generation. However, his early family life was not without challenges. His parents' marriage broke apart when he was just 5 years old, leaving him to grow up primarily with his mother in the Forest Hill neighborhood of Toronto. Despite being separated, his parents both remained influential in his life, his mother providing stability and encouragement, and his father offering glimpses into the wider world of art, performance, and music. The separation left emotional scars, which later echoed throughout Drake's lyrics, often filled with themes of distance, longing, and the struggle to balance love and ambition. Growing up biracial in Toronto wasn't always easy. Drake often felt like an outsider, not fully fitting into either the Black or Jewish communities. His mother enrolled him in a Jewish day school, and Drake celebrated his bar mitzvah, yet he also spent time in neighborhoods where hip-hop culture was dominant. This constant cultural shifting taught him how to navigate between different worlds, developing a sensitivity to identity and belonging that would later shape his songwriting. He understood what it felt like to be in between, to never feel completely at home in one place, and that emotional honesty would become one of his artistic strengths. His mother, Sandy, played a central role in nurturing his creativity. She was a strong, compassionate woman who struggled with health issues, yet she always encouraged her son's curiosity and imagination. Living with her in a modest home, Drake learned resilience, empathy, and the importance of emotional openness. Meanwhile, his father's musical past became a distant but powerful inspiration, a reminder that rhythm was in his blood. Though their relationship had its ups and downs, Drake never denied how deeply his father's influence shaped his understanding of performance and style. Drake's biracial identity, his parents' divorce, and the contrasting environments of Memphis and Toronto created in him a deep sense of duality. The constant push and pull between fame and family, confidence and insecurity, love and loss. This emotional complexity would one day set him apart from other artists in hip-hop. Long before he became a global superstar, Drake was a boy standing between two worlds, watching, listening, and quietly collecting the emotions that would later fill his songs. By the time he reached his teenage years, Drake had already developed an acute awareness of storytelling. He had seen how music could express pain, how rhythm could carry emotion, and how honesty could connect people. His family background didn't just give him roots, it gave him a narrative. It made him a bridge between generations and genres, between soul and pop, between introspection and ambition. Drake's birth and family story is not just the beginning of a musician's life, it's the foundation of an entire philosophy that runs through his art. Every verse he would one day write about heartbreak, fame, or reflection can trace its roots back to the quiet apartments of Toronto, the echoing halls of his Jewish school, and the warm, rhythmic nights in Memphis with his father. His early life wasn't simply about survival. It was about collecting emotions, memories, and melodies that would later resonate with millions around the world. In the intersection of his parents' two worlds, a new sound was being born, one that would redefine how hip-hop and R&B could coexist, and one that would turn a boy from Toronto into the voice of a generation. 2. Childhood and early influences. Drake's childhood was a complex blend of struggle, curiosity, and creativity. A story shaped by contrasts that quietly mold him into one of the most emotionally expressive artists of his generation. Growing up in Toronto with his mother after his parents' separation, Drake experienced both comfort and hardship. His mother, Sandy Graham, worked tirelessly as a teacher, but their life was far from glamorous. They lived in a modest apartment in the Forest Hill neighborhood, surrounded by wealth but without being part of it. Drake often spoke about feeling out of place, living in the basement of someone else's success, a line that perfectly captures the sense of quiet ambition and isolation that defined his early years. As a child, Drake was introspective and imaginative. He wasn't the loudest or most popular kid, but he was observant, always watching, always learning. He loved to entertain his mother by imitating voices, reciting movie scenes, and experimenting with rhythm. His creative instincts were evident early on, but he didn't yet know how to channel them. At school, Drake was often teased for being biracial and for having a Jewish mother. The other kids didn't always understand him, and this sense of being different made him retreat into his own world, one filled with music, television, and imagination. Those lonely afternoons became his emotional training ground. He learned how to turn discomfort into expression. Music became his first language of belonging. Drake would spend hours listening to his father's old records, studying the voices of legends like Al Green, Stevie Wonder, and Marvin Gaye. The soul of Memphis, passed down through his father's stories, mixed with the multicultural sounds of Toronto's radio stations, where Caribbean rhythms, pop anthems, and hip-hop beats all collided. From the beginning, Drake's ears were trained on variety, and this eclectic foundation would later make his own music genre-defying. 3. Education and acting beginnings. Degrassi era. Drake's education and acting beginnings tell the story of a young dreamer learning to navigate two very different worlds, the structured corridors of Toronto schools and the unpredictable landscape of television fame. After growing up in modest circumstances with his mother, Sandy, Drake attended Forest Hill Collegiate Institute, a public high school in an affluent area of Toronto. Though the school was known for its strong academics and focus on the arts, Drake often felt out of place there. Many of his classmates came from wealthy families, and while he lived nearby, his mother could barely afford their apartment. The contrast between his life at home and the world he saw at school planted a seed of quiet determination in him. He wanted to succeed not just to fit in, but to redefine what success could mean for someone who started with less. At Forest Hill, Drake showed early signs of being a natural performer. His teachers noticed his expressive way of speaking, his curiosity about storytelling, and his ability to capture emotion. Though shy at first, he found confidence when performing in school plays. Acting offered him an escape, a place where he could be anyone, where emotion wasn't a weakness but a strength. Around this time, his mother encouraged him to explore his creative side, believing it might be the key to building his confidence after years of feeling like an outsider. Everything changed when a friend from school, whose father was an acting agent, introduced Drake to the entertainment industry. The agent saw potential in his expressive face and emotional range and encouraged him to audition for television roles. After a few minor auditions, Drake landed the role that would change his life, Jimmy Brooks in the Canadian teen drama Degrassi, The Next Generation. He was just 15 years old. Degrassi was one of Canada's most popular shows at the time, focusing on the challenges teenagers face, from relationships and peer pressure to identity and trauma. Drake's character, Jimmy Brooks, was a talented basketball player whose life took a tragic turn when he was shot by a classmate, leaving him paralyzed and confined to a wheelchair. For a young actor with no professional training, it was an emotionally demanding role. But Drake approached it with maturity and authenticity, drawing from his own experiences of feeling powerless and misunderstood. His portrayal quickly became one of the most memorable in the series. While Degrassi brought him recognition, the fame was far from glamorous. Drake juggled long days on set with his schoolwork, often studying scripts late into the night. The modest paychecks helped his family make ends meet, but he wasn't living the celebrity life most people imagined. Still, he felt grateful. Acting gave him purpose, and the structure of the show introduced him to the discipline of hard work. He learned about camera work, production, and the teamwork required to bring a story to life. However, the experience wasn't without struggle. As Drake's classmates at Forest Hill began to recognize him from television, he once again found himself caught between worlds. At school, some treated him like a star, while others mocked his role or questioned his talent. He wasn't just a kid from Toronto anymore, he was a public figure, but without the money or stability that usually comes with fame. It was an identity tug-of-war that would later influence his lyrics about success, pressure, and self-worth. During his years on Degrassi, Drake continued his studies but gradually realized that school wasn't where his true passion lay. Acting had opened the door to creative expression, but his heart was beginning to lean toward music. On set, he would often freestyle between takes or write down lyrics in his notebook. He started recording songs at home, experimenting with sounds and trying to find his own voice. While most people knew him as the actor playing Jimmy Brooks, Drake was quietly preparing for his next transformation, from TV star to musician. The Degrassi era was also a lesson in resilience. When the show's producers eventually decided to write his character out of the main storyline, Drake faced uncertainty. Acting had been his only steady source of income, and his family still depended on him financially. For a moment, it seemed like his brief fame might end there. But instead of giving up, he saw it as an opportunity, a push to take his love for music seriously. Looking back, the Degrassi years were Drake's training ground. They taught him discipline, emotional control, and the art of storytelling. Acting gave him an understanding of character, how to convey vulnerability, pain, and growth, lessons he later applied to his music. When fans listen to his songs today, that cinematic storytelling style, the way he paints emotions scene by scene, traces directly back to his early days as an actor. Education for Drake was never just about classrooms or grades. It was about learning from experience. He learned empathy from his mother, perseverance from his struggles, and performance from Degrassi. Those years in Toronto shaped the foundation of the artist he would become, one who could blend honesty with drama, emotion with precision. The boy who once memorized scripts in his small Toronto apartment would soon begin writing his own, not for TV, but for the world, turning real life into poetry and pain into art. Transition into music and early mixtapes. Drake's transition from acting to music was not a sudden leap but a gradual, deeply personal evolution. The story of an artist discovering the truest version of himself. When his role on Degrassi, The Next Generation began to fade, Drake faced a crossroads that many young performers encounter. Continue chasing television roles that didn't excite him, or take a risk on something that truly came from his heart. By this time, he had already developed a fascination with hip-hop and R&B, drawn to how artists could use rhythm and poetry to express emotion. Acting had taught him how to tell stories, but music offered something more, a direct connection to his feelings, his struggles, and his dreams. Drake had been experimenting with music even while working on Degrassi. Between filming sessions, he would write lyrics in his notebook or freestyle with friends, using his laptop and cheap recording equipment to capture early demos. He was influenced by artists who blurred the lines between rapping and singing, like Kanye West, Pharrell, and Lauryn Hill. But Drake wasn't trying to imitate anyone. He was searching for a sound that matched his own emotional tone. He wanted to make music that felt honest, something you could play at night and feel seen. In 2006, at just 19, Drake released his first mixtape, Room for Improvement. It was a modest project, rough around the edges, recorded independently, and distributed through MySpace and local channels. He sold physical copies out of his car and online, slowly building a small but loyal following. The title itself was telling. Drake knew he was still learning, but he also believed he had something to offer. The mixtape included collaborations with Trey Songz and other emerging artists, blending introspective lyrics with smooth, soulful beats. Though it didn't explode commercially, it caught the attention of underground listeners who saw something unique in his sound, a rare blend of emotional vulnerability and lyrical sharpness. Encouraged by the response, Drake poured himself into a second project, Comeback Season, released in 2007 under his own label, October's very own OVO, which he would later turn into a global brand. This mixtape was more polished and confident. The breakout moment came with the single Replacement Girl, featuring Trey Songz. It became the first video from an unsigned Canadian artist to be featured on Bet's 106 and Park, a huge milestone that signaled his arrival on the broader hip-hop radar. Suddenly, Drake was no longer just that actor from Degrassi. He was becoming known as a serious musical talent. Still, the transition wasn't easy. Drake was navigating uncharted territory, a former TV actor trying to be taken seriously as a rapper. Many in the industry dismissed him, assuming his fame was a gimmick. But Drake knew authenticity couldn't be faked. He kept writing songs drawn from real experiences, heartbreak, ambition, and the pressure to prove himself. His lyrical honesty began resonating with fans who saw themselves in his stories. In 2008, Drake's persistence began to pay off. His growing buzz caught the attention of Jas Prince, the son of Rap-A-Lot Records founder Jay Prince. Jas heard Drake's music and was so impressed that he passed it along to Lil Wayne, one of the biggest rappers in the world at the time. Wayne was immediately intrigued and invited Drake to join him on tour. The moment was surreal. From filming in Toronto classrooms to freestyling on a bus with his idol, Drake's world had completely shifted. Around this time, Drake released his third and career-defining mixtape, So Far Gone, 2009. This project changed everything. It wasn't just another underground tape. It was a revelation. Mixing smooth melodies, introspective verses, and ambient production, So Far Gone created a new blueprint for hip-hop. Songs like Best I Ever Had, Successful, and Houston Atlanta Vegas perfectly captured Drake's blend of vulnerability and swagger. He rapped about ambition and love, loneliness and fame, balancing humility with confidence. The sound was cinematic yet personal, making listeners feel like they were reading his diary set to music. The mixtape spread like wildfire online, defining the sound of the late 2000s and introducing a new kind of hip-hop, softer, more emotional, yet unapologetically confident. Major labels started competing to sign him, and Drake, now a global conversation topic, suddenly had control over his destiny. He chose to sign with Lil Wayne's Young Money Entertainment, solidifying his place in the rap world. And Drake's early mixtape journey wasn't just the start of his musical career, it was a test of identity. He proved that an artist didn't have to fit neatly into a box, that it was okay to be sensitive and still command respect. His smooth transitions between rapping and singing redefined what hip-hop could sound like, inspiring an entire generation of artists to embrace emotional honesty. The lessons from those years, recording in small studios, facing rejection, and betting on himself, became the foundation of his artistic philosophy. Every bar, every melody, carried the confidence of someone who had once been underestimated and the gratitude of someone who made it anyway. Drake's transformation from teenage actor to rising rap star was complete, but it was only the beginning of a career that would soon dominate global charts. The mixtape era taught him that music wasn't just about fame or money, it was about storytelling, connection, and translating the deepest parts of his life into sound. 5. Breakthrough and major label debut. Drake's breakthrough and major label debut marked the defining moment when a talented young artist from Toronto transformed into one of the most influential voices in modern music. After years of struggle, rejection, and self-belief, 2009 became the turning point, the year everything changed. His third mixtape, So Far Gone, had already created a storm online. What began as a free digital release quickly evolved into a cultural phenomenon, reshaping the sound of hip-hop and R&B. With its emotionally raw lyrics, atmospheric beats, and smooth transitions between singing and rapping, So Far Gone became a blueprint for a new generation of artists who saw vulnerability as power rather than weakness. Drake's ability to blend introspection with confidence resonated with listeners across the world. The mixtape's breakout single, Best I Ever Had, became a massive hit, climbing to number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100, a nearly impossible feat for an unsigned artist at the time. It wasn't just a catchy love song. It was a declaration that hip-hop could be tender, romantic, and still cool. Another track, Successful, featuring Trey Songz and Lil Wayne, became an anthem for ambition and self-belief, perfectly capturing Drake's mindset during that era, hungry, hopeful, and determined to redefine success on his own terms. As So Far Gone spread through blogs, radio stations, and clubs, record labels began fighting to sign him. Drake, however, played it smart. He didn't rush into any deal, knowing that his independence had gotten him this far. He understood the value of leverage, that his popularity gave him power in an industry known for exploiting newcomers. Finally, in 2009, After careful consideration, Drake signed with Young Money Entertainment, the label founded by Lil Wayne, under the umbrella of Cash Money Records and Universal Republic. The partnership felt natural. Wayne had already taken Drake under his wing, featuring him on tracks and bringing him on tour. The two shared a mutual respect. Wayne admired Drake's lyrical precision and emotional honesty, while Drake saw Wayne as the mentor who opened the door to his dream. Drake's official major label debut came in 2010 with the release of his first studio album, Thank Me Later. Anticipation was enormous. Fans, critics, and the entire industry were waiting to see if he could live up to the hype. The album didn't disappoint. It debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200, selling over 400,000 copies in its first week. But beyond the numbers, Thank Me Later was a statement of identity. It wasn't the loud, boastful kind of rap album that dominated the charts. It was reflective, melodic, and deeply human. Drake wrote about fame before he even fully had it, about the fear, loneliness, and responsibility that come with achieving your dreams. Songs like Over, Find Your Love, and Miss Me revealed the range of his artistic personality. Over was a bold introduction, confident and self-aware, where he rapped about the pressures of being the next big thing. Find Your Love, produced by Kanye West, showed his softer side, a soulful plea that blurred the line between pop and R&B. Meanwhile, Miss Me, featuring Lil Wayne, was both introspective and celebratory, a reflection on fame, desire, and the cost of ambition. Drake's signature tone, half rapper, half singer, always honest, was now officially mainstream. The critical response was mixed but fascinated. Some critics didn't know how to categorize him. He wasn't traditional rap, nor pure R&B. But fans understood immediately. Drake was creating something entirely new. His lyrics didn't just tell stories. They confessed. He spoke openly about insecurity, love, loyalty, and the strange loneliness of success. That emotional transparency made him relatable, and soon, millions of listeners felt like they knew him personally. The success of Thank Me Later changed Drake's life overnight. He was no longer the underdog from Toronto. He was a global star performing on world stages, collaborating with legends like Jay-Z, Alicia Keys, and Nicki Minaj. Yet, behind the fame, he remained reflective. He often spoke about how surreal it felt to go from struggling actor to headlining artist in just a few years. This awareness of his journey, the understanding that every success carried weight, gave his music depth. The era following his debut album was also a time of adjustment. Drake had to learn how to navigate fame, media scrutiny, and expectations. Every lyric he wrote began to be dissected, every relationship analyzed. But instead of running from the pressure, he turned it into art. This ability to translate personal experiences into universal emotions became his signature. The So Far Gone and Thank Me Later era did more than launch his career. It reshaped the entire soundscape of hip-hop and pop. Before Drake, emotional introspection in rap was often seen as a weakness. After Drake, it became the norm. His sound, a mix of atmospheric production, melodic flow, and candid storytelling, influenced a generation of artists who followed. For Drake, the breakthrough was never just about charts or sales. It was about validation. It was proof that his blend of heart and ambition could change the game. The young man who once recorded in his mother's apartment had now created a global movement. From being doubted for his acting past to being celebrated as the new voice of modern rap, Drake's journey through his major label debut wasn't just an ascent. It was a reinvention of what success could sound like. 6 Rise to Stardom. Key albums and hit singles. When Drake stepped into the music world, his rise to stardom wasn't a sudden explosion. It was a steady, calculated climb built on talent, strategy, and a deep understanding of how to connect with people. By the time his debut studio album Thank Me Later dropped in 2010, the anticipation was electric. Fans had already seen glimpses of his potential through mixtapes, but now, the world was about to witness Drake in full form. The album was more than just a debut. It was a statement. With collaborations featuring industry giants like Jay-Z, Kanye West, and Alicia Keys, Drake wasn't just entering the big leagues. He was stepping in as if he already belonged there. The album debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200, proving that his fusion of emotional vulnerability and confident ambition had struck a cultural nerve. Songs like Over and Find Your Love displayed both his lyrical introspection and melodic instinct, showing that he wasn't afraid. But Thank Me Later was only the beginning. Drake's second album, Take Care 2011, turned him from a rising star into a generational voice. The album was darker, moodier, and deeply introspective, a reflection of fame, relationships, and the loneliness that came with success. Critics and fans hailed it as a masterpiece. With hits like Marvin's Room, Headlines, and the title track Take Care featuring Rihanna, Drake crafted a sound that became the blueprint for the next decade of hip-hop and R&B. He turned emotional honesty into an art form, allowing listeners to experience both his pain and pride. The album earned him his first Grammy Award for Best Rap Album, solidifying his reputation as a true artist, not just an entertainer. As his fame soared, Drake continued evolving. In 2013, Nothing Was the Same pushed his artistry to another level. It was personal, confident, and musically sharper than ever. Tracks like Started From the Bottom became anthems of perseverance, while Hold On, We're Going Home revealed his smooth crossover appeal. The album balanced introspection with ambition, painting the picture of a man who had achieved everything he once dreamed of, but was still searching for meaning beyond the fame. Critics called it his most cohesive project, and commercially, it performed phenomenally, earning multi-platinum status. Drake's momentum didn't stop there. In 2015, If you're reading this it's too late dropped unexpectedly, shaking the industry with its bold tone and razor-sharp bars. The surprise release strategy alone became a cultural moment, but it was the music that made the biggest impact. Songs like Energy and Know Yourself captured his swagger and self-awareness, cementing his position at the center of modern rap. Drake had now mastered the art of controlling not just music, but the entire narrative around it. Then came Views in 2016, a massive global success that featured the viral juggernaut One Dance. That track dominated charts worldwide, making Drake one of the few artists to bridge the gap between hip-hop, pop, and dancehall effortlessly. The album spent 13 non-consecutive weeks at #1, marking a defining moment in his career. While critics debated its cohesion, the public's verdict was clear: Drake was unstoppable. By 2018, Scorpion expanded his empire even further. The double album showcased both sides of his artistry, one half rap-heavy, the other drenched in R&B emotion. It spawned colossal hits like In My Feelings, God's Plan, and Nice for What. Each song dominated radio, streaming platforms, and social media trends simultaneously. The key, Do You Love Me? Challenge from In My Feelings became a viral global phenomenon, demonstrating Drake's uncanny ability to turn songs into movements. Drake's rise wasn't just about chart success, it was about reshaping what it meant to be a rapper in the modern era. He made it acceptable for hip-hop to be emotional, melodic, and reflective. His albums were cinematic, weaving stories of ambition, heartbreak, and triumph. Each release wasn't just a collection of songs but a chapter in a larger story about growth and identity. Even his later works, like Certified Lover Boy 2021, and Her Loss 2022, showed that Drake was still evolving, experimenting with new sounds while maintaining the introspection that defined him. Through each album, he managed to stay relevant in an ever-changing industry, a feat few artists achieve. From Started From the Bottom to God's Plan, Drake's journey through music has been a balance between confidence and vulnerability, fame and loneliness, ambition and introspection. His catalogue of hit singles and record-breaking albums has not only defined the last decade but has also influenced a new generation of artists. The boy who started on Degrassi became one of the most successful musicians in history, by telling his story through music that felt both deeply personal and universally relatable. And as he continued to rise, it became clear that Drake wasn't just a star. He was a symbol of evolution, resilience, and emotional truth in a world obsessed with perfection. 7 OVO Sound, business ventures, and collaborations. By the time Drake had cemented himself as a global superstar, he began to think beyond music, toward legacy, ownership, and building an empire that would last far beyond the charts. This mindset gave birth to OVO Sound, a record label that would become a symbol of Drake's influence and business genius. Founded in 2012 alongside his longtime producer Noah 40 Shebib and manager Oliver El Khatib, OVO Sound, short for October's Very Own, was more than a music label. It was a creative hub, a lifestyle brand, and a reflection of Drake's vision to create something uniquely Toronto. The owl logo, sleek and mysterious, became an international icon of style and excellence. From the very beginning, OVO Sound represented everything Drake stood for: emotionally rich production, lyrical honesty, and a clean, polished aesthetic. The label's early sceners included PARTYXTDOR, Measured Jordan, and DVSN, artists who each carried a slice of that atmospheric, moody R&B sound that Drake had popularized. This collective sound came to define an entire era of music in the 2010s, blending introspection, minimalism, and emotional depth in a way that connected with fans worldwide. Under Drake's guidance, these artists thrived, turning OVO Sound into a respected creative force rather than just a vanity project. But OVO was never meant to exist in isolation. It was part of a larger vision that extended into fashion, culture, and entrepreneurship. Drake's October's very own clothing line launched around the same time as the label, combining streetwear and luxury with clean, bold designs that reflected his Toronto roots. Hoodies, jackets, and accessories featuring the signature owl logo became must-have items, selling out instantly and appearing across pop culture. OVO stores opened in major cities like Toronto, Los Angeles, London, and New York, turning the brand into a lifestyle symbol for fans who wanted to live the Drake aesthetic. Drake's business moves went far beyond OVO. He understood that in the modern entertainment landscape, success meant diversification. In 2013, he signed a multi-year deal with Jordan Brand and Nike to release the OVO Air Jordan sneakers, each drop generating enormous hype and resale demand. These collaborations positioned Drake not only as a musician but as a fashion and cultural influencer. Later, he launched Virginia Black Whiskey, a luxury spirits brand that reflected his taste for elegance and exclusivity. The marketing was sleek and confident, just like his music, and the brand quickly gained attention. Drake also became known for his smart partnerships in the tech and sports industries. He collaborated with Apple Music, reportedly signing a $19 million deal to be one of their leading ambassadors. His 2015 OVO Sound radio show on Apple's Beats One became a platform for premiering new music, breaking artists, and shaping global trends. Each episode became a cultural event, solidifying Drake's role as a tastemaker with the power to move the entire music industry with a single drop. Beyond business, Drake's collaborative spirit played a massive role in his continued dominance. He built bridges across genres, cultures, and continents, working with artists from every corner of the world. From Rihanna and Future to Bad Bunny and Wizkid, Drake's versatility allowed him to blend seamlessly into any sound, be it hip-hop, dancehall, Afrobeat, or Latin pop. His collaboration with Wizkid on One Dance helped introduce Afrobeats to a global audience, while his work with Bad Bunny on MIA opened new doors in the Latin music world. Every partnership Drake touched seemed to turn to gold. What set Drake apart as a collaborator was his ability to adapt. He never tried to dominate a song. He merged his style with others, elevating both sides in the process. His relationship with producers like 40, Metro Boomin, and Boy 1DA created a sound that was simultaneously introspective and commercial, balancing emotional depth with global appeal. And his collaborations with artists like Lil Wayne, Nicki Minaj, and Kanye West in his earlier years helped define modern hip-hop's sound and direction. Through OVO Fest, Drake also created a yearly tradition that celebrated music, culture, and Toronto itself. The festival brought together some of the biggest names in the world: Eminem, Jay-Z, Kanye West, Rihanna, The Weeknd, and many others, turning it into one of the most anticipated events in North America. For Drake, it wasn't just a concert. It was a homecoming, a tribute to the city that raised him and the fans who believed in him from the start. Each of these ventures, OVO Sound, OVO Clothing, Jordan collaborations, Apple partnerships, showed that Drake wasn't just a performer, he was a visionary entrepreneur. He transformed his brand into an empire rooted in authenticity, ambition, and cultural awareness. While many artists struggled to maintain relevance after fame, Drake evolved into a multidimensional mogul who understood the rhythm of both business and art. His empire wasn't about money alone. It was about control, creativity, and community. Through OVO, Drake created a platform for others to shine, ensuring that his legacy extended far beyond his own music. In doing so, he redefined what it means to be an artist in the 21st century, not just someone who makes hits, but someone who builds worlds. And for Drake, Each new collaboration or business move wasn't the end of a story. It was just another verse in a legacy that continues to expand, evolve, and inspire. 8 world tours, live performances, and global impact. When Drake began performing live, it became clear that he wasn't just another rapper on stage. He was a storyteller, an architect of emotion, and a master of atmosphere. His world tours and live performances became experiences that transcended typical concerts, merging music, visuals, and emotion into something unforgettable. From his earliest tours to his massive arena spectacles, Drake redefined what it meant to connect with a global audience. Every performance carried the energy of a superstar and the intimacy of a personal confession, making his shows feel both grand and deeply human. Drake's touring journey began modestly after the release of Thank Me Later, but the demand for his presence was instant. Fans wanted to see the man whose lyrics felt like diary entries, raw, honest, and relatable. His first major tour, Light Dreams and Nightmares, 2010 to 2011, was a bold introduction to what would become Drake's signature stage experience. The tour showcased his duality, emotional vulnerability blended with confident swagger. He performed in front of large LED screens filled with surreal imagery, setting the tone for the cinematic concerts he would later perfect. As Drake's fame skyrocketed, his tours grew into full-blown cultural events. Club Paradise Tour, 2012, took things to the next level, with Drake performing in massive arenas and amphitheaters across North America and Europe. The name itself symbolized his life. He was at the peak of fame, living a dream that felt like paradise but carried the weight of isolation and pressure. The tour featured stunning production, intimate crowd interactions, and a star-studded lineup of opening acts, including J. Cole, Kendrick Lamar, and A$AP Rocky, artists who would later dominate the industry themselves. Drake's ability to curate such talent showed his instinct not just as a performer but as a cultural curator. Then came Would You Like a Tour? In 2013, which followed the release of Nothing Was the Same. This was the tour where Drake truly found his rhythm as a performer. With a 360-degree stage design, advanced lighting, and crystal-clear sound, he delivered an immersive experience. His stage presence was magnetic. He could shift from emotional performances of songs like Hold On, We're Going Home to electrifying renditions of Started from the Bottom, commanding the crowd's energy with ease. Fans felt seen, as Drake often paused to speak directly to the audience, creating a bond that few artists could match. The Jungle Tour in 2015, though shorter, marked a turning point. It was the bridge between the introspective Drake of earlier years and the global megastar who would soon dominate stadiums. By the time Summer 16 Tour, 2016, arrived, Drake was unstoppable. It became one of the highest-grossing hip-hop tours in history, co-headlined by Future. The production was next level: massive LED screens, floating platforms, pyrotechnics, and a moving stage that surrounded fans. Each night felt like a celebration of Drake's dominance, filled with viral moments, surprise guests, and endless crowd energy. Jumpman and Hotline Bling turned arenas into euphoric sing-alongs. Drake's Boy Meets World Tour, 2017, expanded his reach even further. Touring across Europe, he brought his Toronto aesthetic to international audiences. Neon lights, moody visuals, and cinematic transitions that made each concert feel like a movie. He performed in front of tens of thousands nightly, blending hits from every era of his career while adapting the setlist to fit the culture and vibe of each country. His genuine appreciation for his fans was always evident. He often thanked them for making a kid from Toronto feel like the biggest artist in the world. In 2018, Aubrey and the Three Migos tour pushed the boundaries of stage innovation. The centerpiece was a massive LED floor that transformed into waves, fire, and storm clouds beneath Drake's feet, symbolizing how he had mastered both the art and technology of performance. Each show felt like an emotional roller coaster, balancing introspective moments with bursts of high-energy spectacle. And the chemistry between Drake and Migos gave the tour a vibrant, party-like atmosphere that fans couldn't get enough of. Beyond the tours themselves, Drake's global impact was evident in how he brought diverse audiences together. His music crossed cultural boundaries, and his live performances reflected that universality. Whether he was performing in Toronto, London, Lagos, or Tokyo, fans sang every lyric as if it were their own story. His concerts became communal experiences, a gathering of emotions, memories, and collective energy. Drake's influence also reshaped the concert industry. He was among the first hip-hop artists to consistently sell out stadiums, proving that rap could command the same live dominance as rock or pop. His stage design innovations, like the flying Ferrari during Boy Meets World Tour and holographic visuals during Scorpion Tour, set new standards for creativity in live entertainment. His shows became cultural moments, widely covered on social media, and fans often describe them as church for the broken-hearted. The It's All a Blur tour in 2023 marked Drake's maturity as both an artist and performer. With advanced visuals, emotional storytelling, and nostalgic callbacks to his early hits, it celebrated not just his career, but his connection to millions of fans who grew up with his music. Drake's world tours and performances have left an indelible mark on modern entertainment. He transformed the concert into a space where vulnerability meets celebration, where music isn't just heard but felt. His global reach proved that emotion is a universal language, and Drake speaks it fluently. Through every spotlight, confetti drop, and heartfelt monologue, he turned his life story into a shared experience, leaving audiences with one lasting thought. They weren't just watching a performance, they were witnessing history in motion. 9 controversies, feuds, and media attention. Drake's journey to superstardom was never smooth. It was marked by massive success and equally massive controversy. As his fame exploded, so did the scrutiny around his every word, relationship, and lyric. Over time, Drake became one of the most discussed and debated figures in modern music. His career wasn't just about hit songs and awards. It was about navigating the chaos that comes with being at the top of the world while everyone else tries to pull you down. One of the earliest controversies that followed Drake was tied to authenticity. When he first emerged from Degrassi, the next generation, and transitioned into hip-hop, some critics and rappers questioned whether someone with a background in acting and an upper-middle-class upbringing could ever truly represent the culture. The debate over his credibility was constant, especially in the early 2010s, when street authenticity was still considered essential in rap. Drake didn't shy away from this criticism. He turned it into motivation. His lyrics often acknowledged his non-traditional background, but he countered the hate with undeniable success. He wasn't pretending to be a gangster. He was showing that there were other ways to make it. Still, Drake's reputation as a sensitive, emotionally open rapper also became a target. Some mocked his vulnerability, calling him soft for singing about heartbreak and feelings. But what many didn't realize was that this very softness was reshaping hip-hop. Drake blurred the boundaries between rap and R&B, creating space for emotional honesty in a genre that once resisted it. His critics only fueled his fire, and he used the backlash to strengthen his identity as an artist unafraid to show every side of himself. Then came the infamous feud with Meek Mill in 2015, one of the most publicized rap beefs in modern history. It began when Meek accused Drake of using ghostwriters, specifically claiming that a songwriter named Quentin Miller helped him write some of his verses. In hip-hop, that accusation was explosive. It went straight to the heart of artistic credibility. For many rappers, being accused of not writing your own lyrics was a career killer. But Drake flipped the narrative in his favor. Instead of staying silent, he dropped 2 diss tracks within days, Charged Up and the now legendary Back to Back. The second track became a cultural moment, dominating radio, memes, and even Grammy nominations. The message was clear. Drake wasn't to be underestimated. The way he handled the feud, calm, witty, and ruthless, cemented his image as a master strategist. Meek Mill eventually reconciled with him years later, but the damage to Meek's career at the time was undeniable. Another major storm came in 2018 when Pusha T reignited their long-standing tension with his brutal diss track The Story of a Dodon. The song exposed Drake's secret son, Adonis, whom he had not yet publicly acknowledged. It was a shocking revelation, one that forced Drake into an uncomfortable spotlight. Instead of denying it, Drake addressed it with honesty on his album Scorpion, famously rapping, "I wasn't hiding my kid from the world, I was hiding the world from my kid." The transparency only deepened his bond with fans. He turned a scandal into a moment of human truth, another example of how Drake could transform controversy into art. Beyond rap feuds, Drake's personal life has been a constant source of media obsession. His on and off relationship with Rihanna was one of the most talked about celebrity romances of the decade. From collaborations like Take Care and Work to their undeniable chemistry on stage, fans were captivated by the couple's story. Yet, their ups and downs were heavily covered by tabloids, with both eventually moving on but leaving behind a legacy of unforgettable musical chemistry. Drake's rumored relationships with other celebrities, Serena Williams, Jennifer Lopez, and Sophie Brassos, the mother of his child, fueled endless speculation, memes, and gossip. Through it all, Drake managed to keep his tone measured, rarely indulging in public drama. Drake also found himself at the center of debates about appropriation. As his music began to incorporate Caribbean, UK grime, and African influences, some accused him of borrowing sounds without fully representing their cultures. Drake, however, defended himself by emphasizing collaboration and respect. His partnerships with international artists like Wizkid and Popcorn weren't exploitative. They helped bring those genres to mainstream global attention. Still, the conversation around his cultural fluidity continued, reflecting both his global influence and the challenges of operating in a hyper-connected world. Even his friendships drew headlines. His complicated relationship with Kanye West has been a roller coaster of admiration, competition, and tension. They've worked together, dissed each other, and reconciled multiple times. At one point, Kanye's camp was even accused of leaking details about Drake's son to Pusha T, adding fuel to their long feud. Yet, Drake's approach remained consistent. He let success speak louder than scandal. Despite the controversies, or perhaps because of them, Drake became one of the most talked about artists on the planet. Every feud, every headline, and every rumor only seemed to amplify his reach. The media could try to paint him as emotional, manipulative, or opportunistic, but he always stayed one step ahead, turning every criticism into content, every rivalry into strategy, and every scandal into growth. In the end, Drake's controversies became part of his mythos. He didn't just survive the chaos, he thrived in it. He turned pain into poetry, backlash into strategy, and doubt into domination. Whether loved or hated, Drake remained impossible to ignore, a symbol of how modern fame works in an age where music, media, and drama are intertwined. Through every feud and headline, one truth stood tall. Drake wasn't just playing the game, he was rewriting its rules. 10 personal life, fatherhood, and legacy. As Drake's fame grew to astronomical heights, so did the complexity of his personal life. Beneath the designer suits, platinum plaques, and massive arenas was a man constantly searching for balance. Between the persona and the person, between the boy from Toronto and the global icon he had become. For all his confidence and charisma, Drake's personal journey has been defined by introspection, heartbreak, and a deep desire to build something lasting, not just in music, but in life. Throughout his career, Drake's lyrics have often served as windows into his private world. Unlike many artists who hide behind fame, he's consistently shared his vulnerabilities, his struggles with love, loneliness, and trust. His relationships, often public and high-profile, became both inspiration and burden. His on and off romance with Rihanna was one of the most famous celebrity relationships of the 2010s. Fans watched their chemistry unfold in songs like Take Care and Work, only to see them drift apart. Drake once called Rihanna the woman I've loved since I was 22, but despite their connection, they ultimately went their separate ways. It was a theme that defined much of Drake's love life, passion intertwined with pain, intimacy shadowed by distance. He was also linked with several other high-profile women, including Jennifer Lopez, Serena Williams, and Sophie Brassos, the French artist who later became the mother of his child. The revelation of Drake's son, Adonis, was one of the most defining and controversial moments of his career. When Pusha T exposed his fatherhood in 2018, it forced Drake into a deeply personal crossroads. For years, he had been guarding his son's privacy, trying to shield him from the chaos of fame. But after the world found out, Drake chose transparency. In his song Emotionless, he revealed the truth. I wasn't hiding my kid from the world, I was hiding the world from my kid. That single line changed everything. It transformed a potential scandal into one of Drake's most human moments. Over time, Drake began sharing more of Adonis with the world, posting pictures, attending events, and even bringing him to the Billboard Music Awards. Fans were touched by how openly he embraced fatherhood. He often spoke about how his son had grounded him, giving his life a sense of purpose that fame could never provide. The once image-conscious superstar had evolved into a father proud to show his love publicly. Drake's relationship with his parents has also shaped much of who he is. His mother, Sandy Graham, a Jewish Canadian educator, has always been his emotional anchor. He's often described her as the person who kept him stable when everything else felt uncertain. His father, Dennis Graham, a drummer who once played with Jerry Lee Lewis, was both an inspiration and a source of tension. Growing up, Drake saw his parents' separation and experienced the strain of living between two worlds. These early dynamics became lyrical fuel throughout his career, giving his music its signature emotional depth. As Drake matured, so did his outlook on life. Success brought him wealth and status, but it also brought introspection. He began to reflect on what his legacy would be, what would remain when the hits stopped coming, when the lights dimmed. Through songs like The Ride, Do Not Disturb, and The Remorse, he's expressed both pride and paranoia, the pride of achieving everything he dreamed of, and the paranoia of knowing how fragile it all is. He often raps about loyalty, fame's loneliness, and the pressure of maintaining perfection. For someone who built an empire, Drake has remained surprisingly self-aware of its weight. Beyond music, Drake has become an influential cultural figure. He turned his hometown of Toronto into a global brand, often referring to it as the Six. The CN Tower on his Views album cover became an international symbol of pride for the city. Through OVO Sound and the annual OVO Fest, he gave back to the community that raised him, showcasing local talent and bringing the world's biggest artists to Canadian soil. Drake's impact on Toronto's identity is immeasurable. He turned it into a major cultural hub, inspiring countless young artists to dream beyond their borders. Philanthropy has also become a cornerstone of Drake's personal legacy. His God's Plan video in 2018 showed him giving away nearly $1 million, paying for scholarships, groceries, and families in need. It wasn't a PR stunt. It was a message about gratitude and using success to uplift others. That gesture, seen by millions, showed the heart behind the superstar, a man who hadn't forgotten his roots. Fatherhood, fame, and introspection have defined Drake's later years. While he still enjoys luxury, his focus has shifted towards stability and meaning. His home in Toronto, often called the Embassy, symbolizes not just wealth but accomplishment, a physical representation of everything he's worked for. Yet, even from that mansion's marble halls, Drake continues to question what happiness truly means. Drake's legacy extends far beyond music charts. He redefined what it means to be a modern man in hip-hop, emotionally open yet fiercely ambitious. He showed that vulnerability isn't weakness, that introspection can be power, and that one can build an empire while staying true to personal pain. His influence on culture, fashion, and sound is undeniable. Future generations of artists, from The Weeknd to Lil Baby, carry pieces of his blueprint. In the end, Drake's story isn't just about fame or fortune. It's about transformation. From a kid watching his parents struggle to a global icon raising his son in luxury, he's lived every version of the human experience. Through heartbreak, controversy, and triumph, Drake built more than a career. He built a mirror for a generation that sees itself in his lyrics. His legacy is not only measured in records or streams but in emotion, the ability to make millions of people feel something real. And that, more than anything, is what makes him timeless. 11 Ending. If you like this deep dive into Drake's life, smash that like, hit subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next episode. We're just getting started. Share this video with a friend who vibes with Drake's story, and drop your thoughts below. Which part of his journey surprised you most? His Toronto roots, the mixtape grind, or the business moves? I read every comment, and your opinion shapes the next video. So tell me honestly and be part of the conversation. Join the crew. Subscribe now and let's keep exploring the stories behind the music.